obviously we got to talk Venezuela, oil, the US being back in the empire building business, US oil stocks. Where should we invest now? This story is not only a story for January 2026. This is a story for 2026, 2027, 2028. If we want to make big money in the markets, especially in the commodity markets, we got to get this one right. Big show today. Let's get right into it. Welcome to Hot Trades of the Day, your show for swing trading ideas for the coming days, weeks, and months. So, here we go. The dust has settled. We know about the, abduction of Maduro to New York now. Trump came out and pretty much, for everybody who didn't want to believe it, now they know, said it's all about the oil and the commodities. We'll get to that in a second. Very important. But what does this all mean? First off, let me apologize that I disturbed your weekend with the emergency video. It was very well received. I think a lot of you got a lot of value out of it. If you haven't seen it, you might want to go back and take a look at it. Also, if you missed it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss videos like this. This is really important. And we'll see when we talk about the US stocks in a minute why that is the case. And also, I would like to remind you, we have a free newsletter and we already put out the first prediction video 2026 for the hottest commodity stocks that I see for 2026. That is only for the newsletter subscribers, but the newsletter is free. And we will put out 2 more videos. The hottest commodity that I see for 2026, that's already moving, unfortunately, and uranium. So you can get these videos, which will not be published on the YouTube channel, if you subscribe to the newsletter, which is free and will not spam you at all, will just bring value. You just go to bullmarketlifestyle.com, or you can find the link in the comments. Subscribe to the newsletter if you want to get videos that get you ahead of the market. Now, talking about getting ahead of the market, let's jump right into it. Okay, so everybody understands now Venezuela is about oil. Everybody understands now, the big winners are the big oil stocks. And we see this in the pre-markets, and we're going to go to the charts for a little bit. So there are more levels to this, though, than just oil. That's what we need to talk about. Right? I talked about oil in the emergency video. The US, with this takeover of Venezuelan oil industry, is basically taking control of the oil market and the natural gas market. For oil, the US now has control over 50%. If you include the oil in Venezuela that people think is there, it controls over 50% of the global oil resources. That is, of course, turning the US into a powerhouse. But here's another thing that not many people are paying attention to, and this is really important. Venezuela also has rare earth, and they have a lot of gold. The Venezuelan government claims that 161 tons of gold in reserves. Yeah, you believe that? Okay, but there's probably substantial amounts there because estimates, and these are vague estimates, think that Venezuela has up to 8,000 tons of gold resources in the ground. Even if it's just half of that, the US taking this over, and they will, make no mistake about it, they will not give this back. So this is a substantial gold amount that's going now in the hands of the US. And what does that mean? Why are they doing this, right? Well, I told you the first part. They want to become the energy power number 1 in the world. They're the military superpower, right? If they're the energy superpower, that is actually just as important, because as big-time economies like China and India catch up to the US, especially India, highly energy dependent because it's a commodity poor country, you're the number 1 energy power in the world, Now you have real leverage over these countries. The second point that's really important is adding the oil resources, the net gas resources, and the gold resources strengthens the value of the US. And I think this is one of the major reasons why this coup happened. We have billions of US treasuries that need to be restructured and refinanced coming up on expiration. However, we see that foreign governments are buying less and less US bonds. One of the reasons is because the debt situation is so problematic in the US. However, when you increase the value that the country has through its resources, and now the Venezuelan resources, then obviously that gives potential bond buyers more security to buy US bonds. So I believe this is a way how the US wants to basically strengthen their, how do I say that? Like their how the picture, the international picture, how they're perceived as a country. They have all these resources, right? To get people to buy their bonds. That's very important. Because right now, and this is actually important to understand, and this is where we get into all the nitty-gritty into the market things. Right now, the largest buyer of US treasuries are funds. Pension funds, hedge funds. The problem with funds is they're going to dump these treasuries if they feel there's a major problem. While foreign countries would hold these treasuries because it's part of geopolitics, long term, the funds don't have any of these. Their only mandate is to the owners of the funds. So that actually puts the US at more risk. So they would like to get back to have international governments buying US bonds. How do you do that? Well, you make it the most valuable country in the world, not only in military terms, but also in commodity terms. And then the third reason, and this is the reason why this happened now, is this is midterm election year. Now, if Trump wants to power through all the things that he wants to accomplish and set up the MAGA movement for the next decade, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the plan that the far-right Republicans, the MAGA movement, had within the Republican Party, what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be Trump hands over to Vance, Vance hands over to Kirk, and then Kirk hands over to Trump Jr. So if you want to do this, then you need to win the midterm election. And you need to win it big. If you lose the midterm election to the Democrats, you become a lame duck. Well, sure helps if you all of a sudden hand Venezuela on a silver platter to the large American oil companies. You can bet there's going to be major support coming for the Republican candidates at the midterm election from US oil. So there you have it. We got to talk boots on the ground. Will there be a full invasion in Venezuela? I do not expect this to happen, which is horrific, by the way. Let's talk about this just for a second. We just talk markets, so this doesn't matter, but we're also human beings. Venezuela, the country, the people there, they're completely effed. It's going to be horrible for the people in Venezuela. We're going to see also mass migration out of Venezuela. Venezuela imports 80% of its food, mostly from Cuba. Cuba's not going to export shit, I'm sorry to say that, to Venezuela that's now under US control. Where are they going to get their food from? We're talking basic needs of living. So, while we're going to see these great pictures of illegal Venezuelan immigrants flown back to Venezuela that the Trump government will drag out in the media, we will see an even bigger migration than we already had out of Venezuela. I do not believe that Trump is going to put boots on the ground. You can call the US president a lot of things. Some of them justified, some of them maybe not. But you cannot call him a war president. Trump is actually afraid to have a war. Especially in a midterm election year, that's not what he wants. He does not want reports of American soldiers getting killed in Venezuela in an election year. I think he's going to put boots on the ground, all right, but only to protect the oil facilities and the pipelines and the refineries and the harbors. So anything that's of value for the US immediately, he's not going to put boots on the ground to trying to conquer the country. I personally think he's probably going to outsource this to private military, actually, because in that case, you can even reduce the possibility of GI casualties. So I think the war risk is off the table. Now let's talk what this means for the oil price, because we look at the oil price, and the oil price really didn't do anything so far in Asian and European trading on Monday. And the reason is people are uncertain what this really means. Is there now a major oil supply coming to the market? I don't think so. I think this is a geopolitical control factor that is more important here. We talked about the top 1% in the emergency video and what is really happening, and this is all playing out right now. And I'll talk about it in another video because this is really important to understand. I don't think so. I think that, and let's not forget, it's going to take quite some time to get the fairly outdated equipment that they have in Venezuela up to modern production standards. It's usually mostly heavies that are produced in Venezuela, so the refining is really important there. That needs to be upgraded, all these things. So we're talking right now of a phase of build-out, which means who are the big winners? Oil services. If you watch my oil prediction video for 2026, I told you oil services is one of the sectors you want to get into. And we're going to talk about this in a second. I'm also going to show you an oil service company that has, or at least so far in European trading, has not moved as much as, for example, Halliburton, which is up 10%. And that shows those are the big immediate winners. Obviously, big oil is one of the big winners. Now, let's look at the charts and see what's going on. Because what I expect to be happening is there's going to be a hype for US oil stocks. The reason being nobody's invested in them as well. A lot of institutional investors need to jump on board now. However, I believe we're going to have high volatility in the market that will affect all stocks. I think it will affect the energy stocks and especially big US oil a lot less than it will, for example, the high-tech sector. But there could be a good chance that you can get these stocks a little cheaper. The bargain times, the bargain prices, the prices when I started to recommend to invest in big US oil stocks in the fall when nobody cared about them. And I told you here on the channel, get long on oil services, get long on US oil companies. Made in US oil is the story. You can see it in the prediction video 2026. It's basically January 5th. And my prediction video for 2026 oil has already completely played out. It's like a 100% hit rate. I mean, that's luck, obviously. But that's basically what has happened. And if you didn't see the video, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss these videos. And if you watch the video or you watch the video on copper or silver or gold and you like these type of predictions, just sign up for the free newsletter. Again, we're going to have 2 more free prediction videos coming. They had to be pushed back a little bit because of what is happening in Venezuela. So let's get into the charts. I think you need to be in US oil stocks. However, I also do think you don't want to jump in full force, head first, power bomb into the deep end of the pool, because I do think that we're going to get some of the oil stocks a little cheaper once it settles in that, oh wait, okay, the US big oil is going to get all these resources. But it's going to take a while until that really starts adding to the revenue and the income. So the major players you need to watch are the big three US oil companies. And then in Europe, you had Shell that used to run oil fields in Venezuela in like the 50s and the 60s. But as you can see with Shell, let me bring this up real quick. This is European trading. You can see nothing is really happening. It doesn't get any bounce while the US oil stocks are bouncing high. You look at the chart. This is the weekly. Doesn't nearly look as great. Doesn't look terrible, right? You can clearly see we're forming a long-term base here. That is nice, but you can probably get this stock a lot cheaper if you want to get in. But I'll tell you one thing. This is what I believe. I don't think Shell is going to see a drop of oil from the Venezuelan oil. This is going to go all to the US companies. That's the deal, all right? And I told you about the deal that I think was made in the emergency video from the weekend. So ExxonMobil, I've been talking about this diamond formation, which is playing out beautifully, just as I told you about. A very rare chart formation that we see. You get a breakout, you get a massive move to the side where it breaks out. It broke out to the upside. You could have gotten in. I started talking about it, I think here, in this area right here. So where are we now? Well, we are in this big time resistance zone, and pre-market you see it all the way up here. Boy, oh boy, this looks great, right? So we're up $6, so 5%. But what's even more important is with this jump, we break above the yellow resistance zone. And that means blue sky potential for ExxonMobil. I've said it all fall. I said it in the winter. I'll say it again. Weakness is a buying opportunity for ExxonMobil. Chart looks fantastic. Let's look at the other big guys. Here we go. ConocoPhillips, pre-market up here. What does that tell us? We broke in the horizontal resistance zone. Bottoming phase complete. Check. We are right here. Again, could we get a retest if we get volatility in the market and a correction? Yes, I do. Is it a substantial drawdown? Maybe 3%, maybe 5% after this is all done. Don't expect a gigantic sell-off. The bargain times are over. You either were on this channel in the fall and the winter, and you heard what I was saying when I was recommending US oil stocks and nobody cared about them. Don't wait for those to come back. We have a change in sentiment, a change in the story now. But there's still, just look at the chart of ConocoPhillips, there's still more than enough money for us to make. More than enough money. So we're going to play this beautifully, like a football team that is running the ball and the opponent can't stop the run. We're just going to keep running. There's no reason for us to be fancy and creative. This is what's happening. And then obviously we got to look at the biggest winner of them all, which is Chevron, which is up 8% right now, pre-market. And that one was actually the one that looked the least promising out of the big three, but now also above the yellow resistance zone. If this holds, Chevron is breaking out. We're going back to the all-time highs here around 190, and then we'll go from there. However, this is all nice and cute compared to Halliburton. Look at Halliburton popping 10% pre-market up here. This is where we were, and I've said it before. Look at this jump on Friday. Again, this is important. This is important for me to tell you. Look at the jump on Friday on a weak oil price. There was no reason for Halliburton to jump like this on Friday. Someone knew Venezuela was coming. Big money has been accumulating oil services in the third and fourth quarter. And I pointed it out here on the channel. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss these videos. I told you, something is up. Oil services are getting bought up. US oil stocks are not going down, even though the oil price is going down. Well, now we know. Smart money knew, and they bought the oil services all the way at the lows, right? All the way here, they started buying oil services, and now we know why. They're going to be the big winners of this Venezuelan takeovers because they're going to get the jobs to build out and modernize the oil fields. Now, let's talk about a play that moves a little bit, but not dramatically yet. And that's Transocean. Okay? So far, it's up around, let me do a little, like 4-ish%. But look at the chart. This is a great looking chart. We broke the long-term downtrend. We completed the base. I started talking about Transocean, recommending it. I want to say here, I got in this breakout a little early, somewhere here, because you can still see that I was showing the base formation, which then dragged out a little bit. But here we are, right? First level of the base formation complete. Now the second level of the base formation is going to get attacked, and I think it's going to get completed. We're above the 50, change of trend. Look at here. We're all the way always below the 50. Now we're above the 50-day. Great looking chart. I really like Transocean here as a winner that the people have not picked up yet on. Why is that? Most of the explored oil fields are onshore oil fields in Venezuela. However, Venezuela is supposed to have major offshore oil fields in the ocean as well. Again, not explored as much. Reason being, you nationalize the oil sector, well, that's what you're going to get, right? Thanks a lot, socialists. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the equipment to do the exploration offshore, so this has never been done. Wasn't necessary, right? They were just draining the onshore reserves to pay all the corruption, to pay the military, to stay in power, to enrich themselves. And I'm talking about the power elite there, Maduro and his circle. Now, with the US coming in, they want it all. And that means the offshore field's going to come into play. Transocean is a specialist for oil services for offshore oil drilling. So that's the story here that nobody's talking about. That is the secret stock that it's moving a little bit because everything is moving in oil today, right? But nobody is talking about it yet. It looks good. It doesn't look as great as the US stocks. It doesn't look, obviously, as great as Halliburton, which is, again, the easy name that everybody's flocking to. But I think once they catch on, Transocean has a lot of room to run. That's it for today. We're going to have another video on Venezuela. We're going to talk about the losers. We're going to talk about another secret winner that has not been moving yet, at least from what I can see in Europe, in the early pre-market US. As I said before, this is a big one. And we need to get this one right. This is a major shakeup in the energy markets. The US big oil company is going to come out the big winners long term. However, it's also a major shift in geopolitics. We're back into basically the colonial ages. And this is important for us to get right. To look at what does that mean for the markets? What does that mean for the commodities? Who are the big beneficiaries where we're always on the safe side? One of them is gold. Geopolitics just got a lot more riskier over the weekend than it had been on December 31st, 2025. And we see it in the gold price as well. I'm going to bring it up real quick and then we're going to close out on this, because this is already longer than I like the videos to be. But as you know, when things get dicey or dramatic or we have big time news, then I'll not leave you hanging. So look at gold jumping up today. We will see what happens in the US markets. It's back above the yellow resistance zone. If it establishes itself there, it's looking great again. So this is how we're going to approach this. We're not going to approach this from this doomsday naysayers. The world is going to end. The third world war is coming. You will hear nothing like this on this channel. I do not believe that's a good way to live. I grew up in Germany. I was born in Bonn, the former capital. So obviously we had all these protests about the nuclear wars of the 80s and the fear of the Third World War. And it was a terrible way to live, to be afraid of all these things. So you will hear nothing like this on this channel. What we're going to do is the constructive thing. We're going to look at the developments and say, who's going to be the sure winners? And we're going to get on their side. For the oil sector, right now, that's big US oil and US oil services. That's it for today. We see us Wednesday, probably, but who knows? I might have to do an emergency video tomorrow with the way things are moving in the world now. But either way, then we're going to talk again about Venezuela, because this is way, way bigger than the market thinks right now. I wish you a great start to the day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.